Hello, Malar. How are you?
I am good. Good evening, Ashok. Thank you
Good
for joining us.
evening.
It is a holiday for us, and it's a public holiday. It's the Prophet's birthday, and I know you guys are working hard. But thank you so much for joining, for joining us, and joining me to do the summary. It's been a while since I did the summary, but before we start, I think should I sing you happy birthday?
No, no, it's okay. It's not my birthday.
Yeah, it's your birthday with LIFA, isn't it? So 1 year with
All right.
Leadership in Flow Asia. So if you are hiding there, people, you can wish Ashok happy anniversary, happy birthday, anything that is happy. So welcome to the show. This is Mother from Malaysia.
And this is Ashok from Singapore. So, in case you're wondering why we are celebrating my 1 year, right? So, Leadership in Flow Asia started some last year, but it's February, right? And it's been very interesting because we have always been interviewing on a weekly basis leaders in this part of the world, right? And we've been having a lot of insights from them, and we've been learning a lot. And we started to identify the different type of leaders or the type of leaders we've been attracting, and we've been learning a lot, especially in this evolving era. So we've been learning a lot from the leaders, right, about what actions they take on a personal growth journey, on a leadership journey, and therefore also on the business performance journey, the business growth journey, right? And so I was invited last year, September. So I guess that's what Malar was talking about been 1 year. So happy birthday to me for the show. And this month, right, September, the theme has been evolving leadership. And we interviewed 3 leaders this month. Yeah, Purnima Singh, we had Stephanie, and then we had Dato Indra.
Dr.
That was
Sabirin,
the
yes,
order. Yeah.
yes. And that's
So I remember, if I can just talk about Purnima, right?
please do.
I do remember the conversations with her. Hers was very interesting for me because it is about shifting to be comfortable, right? When you shift yourself out of your comfort zone,
Mhm.
right? She was all about shifting out of your comfort zone and being comfortable with that,
Mhm.
right? And I like some of the things, some of the ideas she shared. She delved deeper into how she gets a board of directors, also her own board of directors, right? People uh, who've gone through adversity, who know her, who have a knowledge, subject matter knowledge in the sense, and then who will then she gets to bounce off ideas when she wants to do something different, something new, to make a decision. So that's how she gets out of the comfort zone, by gathering information from what she calls her own board of directors in that sense. So I kind of like that whole concept. And of course, she delved deeper into about being anti-fragile, because even when she says, when you move out of your comfort zone, right, you got to make sure that you will face a lot of roadblocks, and how do you keep bouncing back, in the sense. So she talked about that also. Of course, we ended up the session by talking about what are the future skills that she sees that are important. So she spoke about empathy, being adaptable, and interestingly, technology, digital literacy. All right,
Which is your
that's
favorite?
for that's for Purnima. You want to share about Stephanie? I'll also jump in about Stephanie because I think you and I did Stephanie together. Yes, we did.
Yes, we did Stephanie together.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought what was interesting about Stephanie, because even though our theme was evolving leadership, we focused
Mhm.
on purposeful marketing, right? And
That's
Stephanie
right.
has a very interesting way of thinking, because Stephanie came across as a leader who is always eager to connect the dots to serve the purpose of the business.
Yes.
And for some reason, yeah, so she unconsciously, at least in the beginning, chose industries where she really wanted to make a difference. So she wanted to understand. So it was very interesting when she shared how she moved from operation to marketing, right?
Mm.
And
Marketing to operations.
marketing into operations and then back into marketing,
Yeah,
right? So,
that's
the first part may have been not so much by choice, but she took the best option available and she found her
mm.
love there. And after which, she got into operations because she really wanted to understand how things work. And then back again into marketing, this time, wanting to be more strategic and, make things better for the purpose of the business, which is serving the customer. So hers was
Right.
very interesting to see how, on one hand, she was evolving, right? Because operation and marketing can be considered two really different parts of a business, right?
Mm.
Yet she was trying to bring that together, and how she allowed herself to shift, and how it was coming together for her, right? So I thought that was
Right.
Stephanie. Do you have anything to add on for Stephanie?
Yes, yes, yes. Again, listening to Stephanie, yes, it's all about purposeful marketing. And I like the fact that she sees her role as how she can contribute to society, how she provides information, and how she's helping provide people with enough information so they can make the informed decision. And that she's very passionate about it. And I like the fact that when she said she intentionally jumped from marketing to operations, right? To be able to understand both sides and bridge it together. And this way she talked about collaboration. And I like her mathematical example of collaboration. 1 + 1 = 5. I really like that one, because that's how she saw collaboration and how she can make purposeful marketing important, and of course, we also asked her about the future skills. And also interesting, she said, yes, you got to look out for the trends. You need to be mastering that service that you provide. But she also alluded to digital literacy. Interesting, you know?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So that was for Stephanie. Again, very insightful learning from her.
Yeah, looks like technology is something that's inevitable, right? You can't run away from
Pretty
it
much. Pretty
anymore.
much.
Yeah,
Mm.
because which brings us to the third or the last leader, Dato Indra, Dr. Sabirin, right? From now, he is a technology guy all throughout, and yeah, and I mean, whenever he comes online, he talks about his connection, or rather his interaction with Elon Musk. And so one of those things, so that he really talks about a lot of examples of why we need to give young leaders an opportunity,
Okay.
right? It may sound like something that everybody is talking about,
Hmm.
right? Generally, I think generally we say that, okay, the future belongs to the young people, and we
Yes.
need to give them an opportunity. But what really moved in, and I must say that he has had an impact on me, because he keeps talking about risk taking, purposeful risk taking.
Realistic.
And
Okay.
because he was appointed the CEO of a GLC at the age of 33, right, in
Mm.
his own experience, he acknowledged that he was more of a risk taker when he was younger,
Hmm.
and how now he is actually quite careful about risk taking. And the point he
Right.
made, if I could so I thought that insight was nice, because I would have thought that when you are a risk taker when you're young, I don't see that shifting. So he said, no, as I grow older, my experiences teach me and I overthink. When you are younger, you think lesser because you don't probably have evidences, right? And he had
Mm.
a very, for me, very insightful, might seem simple, but really insightful, that had really caught my attention, where he says, the faster you fail, he wants the young people to fail better, right? The faster you fail, the faster you succeed.
Right.
And he was advocating a lot for how do we create structures to support these of
Hmm.
the young leaders when we bring them on board. Because if we keep looking at only successes, then and you can only have definitive success if you're following a particular formula, a precedent is set. But if you want innovation, if you want new ideas, you need to fail first to know what's not working so that you can then get to what's working. And we've heard a couple of speakers, even when we talk about innovation, say something similar, right? So it's how, on one hand, we say we need to learn, and on the other hand, learning doesn't include mistakes, right? Because
Right.
you're always being measured on the success factors, So I thought that was pretty interesting, because how do you evolve as a leader now to embrace innovation, to embrace new things, right? Because anything that is new, that is unknown, will require us to take the risk. And that means risking not succeeding, right?
Right.
I'm not too sure, because I personally, for me, I'm not too much into the word failure,
Okay.
right? Personally, I'm not, because I really do think that, if you know exactly what you're doing and then you don't make it, you can consider that a failure, right? But if you are exploring, you are learning.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is, if you know what you're doing
Mm,
and you don't achieve it,
it's failure.
okay. But if you're exploring, well, what's the difference then? Because I would have thought if you know what you're supposed to do, but you don't do it, that's a failure. But if you start doing it, it's still an attempt, isn't it?
So it's an attempt. So, for example, I mean, you go to school, right? We sit for papers. We take on courses, right? So let's take education per se.
Mm.
So I know the syllabus. When I do a test, the test confirms whether I understand the syllabus in the context of the exam papers,
Okay.
right? Yeah. And so I passed, I failed. Okay, I failed in my knowledge and application of the content, because
Okay.
the assumption is I learned it, i.e., I know about it, right? But if I'm doing something really new, for example, right, like for me, if one day I decide to do my PhD, I'm terrified of
Mm.
thesis. I've never written a thesis in my life,
Sure.
right? So it's something new, and I'm going to write my thesis for the first time,
Sure.
right? And I'm going to explore, right? Because I don't have experience. Now, if
Mhm.
I want to surely get an A, then I follow the precedent that has been set to get an A for my thesis.
Okay.
I need to follow a particular formula, and then that's considered success. When I don't follow the formula and I choose to explore a new space, I may not get an A, I might even fail, right? I don't think that's failure. I think that's
Yeah.
learning,
Yeah. Exactly. So
right?
so so
Mm.
so when do you then say what is a failure?
I think a failure is when you know how to get somewhere. So I want to go to Singapore, right?
Hmm.
And I know it takes, maybe 7 hours to get to Singapore, for example, my whole journey,
Mm.
right? And there's a track record, and I follow the system, and I fail to arrive there on time. That's a failure for me. right? I know that if in marketing, for example, cold calls, when we do events, what is, for example, the minimum number in terms of closing. It's a numbers game. So there's
Mm-hmm.
already a track pattern of, okay, you make this many calls, you meet this many clients. Let's say your closing rate is 20%.
Mm.
Anything less than 20, you failed. So there's a goal, and there's a way of achieving the goal. When you achieve it, you succeed. When you don't achieve it, you fail, right? In learning, you want to learn something, there's a space for exploration because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
That's why you're exploring, right? If you know what you know, what you're supposed to know, I think that's where success and failure uh, comes for me, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I think we're
Uh,
going away from our
okay. No, no, no,
topic
no,
of
no, 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 no.
evolving.
But this is important because I think this cascades down to the model that you want to share also, right?
Yeah, yeah.
About learning, about skills, and failure is part of that whole discussion anyway. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is all worth it. It's all worth it.
Success, and so I think it's really how do we measure success, right? And
Mm.
I think we need to be very careful that we are clear about the factors of success and how we're going to measure it, and
Sure.
ensure people are competent before we say they failed. You can't put people who are not competent and then say they failed, which is what we do
Right.
with promotion, with recruitment. We take people, we don't know if they're competent, and then we say they failed,
Mm.
right? Anyway,
Right.
so that brings
Yep.
us to today's topic, which is evolving leadership, right?
Hmm.
So, very interestingly, I think what I enjoy really about our summary shows, which I have not done for a while, is how we try and synthesize and figure out actually what are some insights that we got from our speakers, right?
Right.
So, while our topic was evolving leadership, and we all will agree, I think change is the only constant thing.
Okay.
And this is something
Okay.
that I've heard from the time I came into the workspace. Now, for change to happen, if you look, I mean, you are the change management guru in your part of the world, Ashok. We know that
Yep.
every time we talk about change, we talk about structures, we talk about all the things that is clear, that can be seen, that is logical. And very often you will find that the one that is most important and most crucial for change is the people.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yet, unfortunately, we spend the minimum effort and time in the people,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And
Agree.
yeah, so it's over and over again. If you see any change management model, ha- yeah, you need to get everything right, but very often the kind of importance we give to everything else, we don't give to human change, right? Why? And then we say people are resisting change. There's
Mm.
pushback and stuff like that,
Mm.
which is why then the whole change, what you call it, fails. But for change to happen, right, we need to ask. So if you want to change, we need leadership that evolves, right? If leaders don't change, it's very difficult to. I'm not sure how possible it is if leaders are not willing to change, whether they can inspire and influence change. Because leadership is influence, right?
Right.
Right. So we define leadership as influence. So if leadership is influence, and great leaders inspire, so that people are not just influenced, but they are energized to move forward with the change faster,
Mm.
right? And that's really what happens. And if you look at all our three speakers, Chi, I want to say brilliantly, I thought based on our conversation and all the smart question you asked, we've just summarized it with this diagram. So if you look at
Okay.
evolving leadership, right, we've heard of the will skill model. I'm not sure, will skill model is that whenever we're looking at people and their ability to learn, change, take on something, we look at their skill levels and will level, right?
Okay.
Willingness
Okay.
here means usually known as attitude in the past, right? But I would call it motivation. What
Okay.
drives me, that gives me the will to want to do this,
Right.
right? So we talk about will, right? Skill is your ability to do something, right? So for those who are familiar with that model, it's a square with a skill and will, and there are four boxes in it. But what I wanted to share is that I thought it was very interesting if you look at it when we talk about influence, right? In the model that you introduced, which I'm sure you will enlighten us a little bit, is when we look at change, change has got three parts to it, right? The change, and very often when you talk about change, we think it's all about if someone can change, can sustain change, and they persevere, we say they have got great willpower, all right? And after this, we're hoping to share a study with you to say that, well, maybe that's not true after all, right? So there are three parts for change to be successful. So if you want to change as a person, number one, you must know whether you have the skills to change and the will to
Okay.
change. Now,
Okay.
when you change, can you see that's the me part? And then there's the social part. Now, a lot of times, if you want to change, if you're not in an environment that supports you, right, you got to be really strong to go against people around you. The peer group pressure can be really challenging, right? So, social here means what is the support that we get from our social environment for us to then sustain in our change. I mean, think
Mm.
about if you're on a diet. I don't know whether you've been on a diet, right? So, but if you're on a diet and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to eat healthy food, right? And
Mm.
my lunch partner says, ah, yeah, one day only come and eat uh, curry mee with me, right? Now, so there goes my whole support system, right? And I have friends who, and I used to say this to my friends too, where we go for lunch and then we'd say, okay, you don't eat, you just sit and eat your food, and then we go like, do you want to try? You want to try a little
Uh-huh.
bit? Do not like eat a little bit, right? So we think that's being loving and being caring, but that's what we mean by social environment. What
Right.
support are we getting socially to do what we want to do for us to sustain our change, right? I used to say that, I put on a lot of weight after I had my children, my two fellows, right? And I had difficulty losing weight. And I blame it on my mom because she's such a good cook. And she'll always say, you're feeding children. Need to eat more. You're feeding. And my greatest regret is believing her and eating more, right? So socially, if you are surrounded um, by challenges that doesn't support the change that you aspire, it's going to be an uphill task for you. So first is me, my own
Right.
willpower, right? My own will, and my skill, and then
Mm.
the immediate circle around me who can support me again, their will and their skill to support me. And then finally, if it's an organizational change, right, we need to look at organizational support. How is the organization going to support me for me to sustain this, right?
Sure.
Because in businesses and culture change, one of those big words that we talk about is empowerment, right? Very interestingly, whenever we do culture change work or service work, right,
Mhm.
managers will say, yeah, I wish my people were more empowered, right? And the manager or leader will say, I need to empower people. Well, what does empower means? It
Mm.
it means that you need to create structures that support them, right? So one very good example that stays in my heart is that we were doing a service intervention for our organization, and what they started doing is they said, okay, are very customer service oriented. We want to minimize the complaints, right? And they tracked the number of complaints. Now, when the number of complaints went up and it was connected back to their KPI, what happened? Their results suffered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after a while, when they introduced the intervention, the complaints went down, and people were very happy. So actually, what happened is they decided that they didn't encourage people to put in the complaints to reduce the number of complaints.
Right.
So so what happens is that sometimes when you're tracking the wrong thing, you get the wrong behavior and the wrong results. Your objective was to make sure we know what people are not happy about so that we can up our service. So the organization structure is very, very important. It's just like psychological safety. We say we want people to be safe to speak up, right? But in our meetings, our agenda is full of just items to tick. There's no
Sure.
space for conversation, right? So that's what it means. Now, so that's a part. There are three factors. I call it the MSO factors: the me, social, and the organization. That's that. And you look at motivation. So under will, if you see on the left, I have listed 7 factors. Now, why 7 factors here? If you find this model useful for you to understand evolving leadership, we need to know what motivates us, what
Mm.
motivates the surrounding, and what motivates the organization. And of course, I'm using our 7 motivation flow factors because it's something we measure. So you can put in any model, which is a motivational model, and say, okay, how am I going to figure out what is motivating me? Now, at the bottom, if you see here, you see technical versus power. So these are
Yep.
skills.
Right at the bottom. Yep.
I've divided them into 2 spaces. Technical is really work-related skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like as a trainer, I need to learn decent PowerPoint skills. That would be a technical skills. Power
Mm.
skills are what I call soft skills, which are undermined, right? We assume that power skills or soft skills are we don't measure. Number 2, we assume if we tell someone you need to be assertive, they know how to be assertive. If you tell somebody you need to be optimistic, we think people know how to turn around and be optimistic. So that's a skill. And I think the higher you are in your hierarchy, your skill levels, your power skills, our success is very much determined more by power skill than technical skill, because technical skills are skills that we would have picked up along
Yep.
the way. And for
Okay.
leaders, we know that strategic thinking skills and ability to influence. These are things that comes under mostly power skills. So,
Nice.
so I just wanted to summarize the 3 times 2 factors. Me as me, social, and organization is
Okay.
3 factor, and the 2 factor is will and skill.
Okay.
So,
Can I just summarize it? Because I'm getting excited. Then you correct me. Okay. What I'm
okay,
seeing is in this evolving leadership, right, where you want to influence change, what you need are 2 drivers, right? Will and skill. Both are also important, right?
mhm,
And from the 2 drivers, what you need to look at are what are the influencing factors. We must also be aware about the influencing factors, like me, the social surrounding, and the organizational structures. And if I go even more specific, if I look at what is the will, within the will, right, there are motivational factors. That is the 7 flow factors that you have written down. And when I look at skill, right, it is a reality that it moves in a spectrum. We have technical skills which you need to build. And over time, if you want to influence more, you'll have to weight up on their power skills. Now, I would rather use the word power skills. I totally agree with you as opposed to soft skills, because I don't think we are given it enough attention. But yeah, so did I get the summary right?
yeah. I like the way you use drivers and influences. So I'm sure we can work on this model better.
Sorry, this is what came to me. Like, okay, my change management hat, right? So I see things differently.
Yeah. We conceived and gave birth to it today. So if you're listening in, watching, please ask us questions or put in your comments so that we can learn along and make this model better. So the whole
Okay.
idea is, if you're a leader, and all of us are leader, we either self-lead ourselves or
Mhm.
lead other people. We need to evolve. And if you are thinking, uh, I personally think that, as much as I do this work, I struggle with change.
Yep.
Some
Fair
changes
enough.
are so difficult for me, right? And a lot of times, we are drummed with the fact that, if you are not quick to change, if you're pushing back change, something is wrong with you.
Mm, mm.
And I think over the years, I started off my journey as a motivational trainer because I thought if I speak, I can change the world. Then I realized, well, it's not that easy and that straightforward, right?
Yep.
Which is why I think we need to know what are the factors that will increase our success level and the journey of change, facilitate the journey of
Okay.
change that's required for us and for people. So that's what this model is all
Okay. Okay.
about. Okay, let me remove that. Hmm. So, what are we going to do with this? So, when we talk about change, right, one of those things that we talk about is our motivational factor.
Yes. The
Ashok, I'm
will.
not sure at the will, all right?
Right.
I'm not sure whether you've watched this video, right?
Oh,
And
now LIFA comes to the video show too. Okay, let's watch. Let's watch.
I think I lost track. I needed to do something that I know, and this video is for me, it's an evergreen video. So I was first introduced to the marshmallow video, the
Okay.
marshmallow
Okay.
test, when I started doing emotional intelligence program. So have you heard of the word delayed gratification?
We've heard of the word. Yes. Yes.
Yes. So delayed gratification is very interesting, right? So when they looked at people with, so EQ was introduced because they were looking at people who were successful. And
Right.
then they realized there were traits that made people successful, which is
Okay.
why they came up with IQ gets you the job, EQ gets
Mm,
you the promotion.
mm.
So that's how EQ was coined by Daniel Goleman. Now,
Right.
one of the attributes that emotionally intelligent people have is what they say delayed gratification. So there's
Mm.
instant gratification and there's delayed gratification. What is instant gratification? I do now, I want the results now, I want the rewards now.
Right.
Delayed gratification, which our generation is used to, is you do something knowing that you will eventually get the reward,
Sure.
either with a timeline or not a timeline.
Mm,
Right?
mm.
So, one of the jokes about for me delayed gratification, how sometimes, well, I was not an A student for a start, right? And uh, when other kids in my school get either A's or good results, they will come and brag, I got this, my mother bought me that, and my mother bought me this, right? So I used to try and, use that power card and go to my mom and say, Mommy, if I do well in this, what would you give me? Instant
Okay.
gratification. But,
Mm.
if you're Tamil speaking, you should translate this into Tamil, right? And my
Sure.
mom will say, if you don't do well, then you will be cleaning roads.
Right.
So that was my very powerful delay. And I tell you, it's something I really, really appreciate in the world of instant gratification, right?
Mm.
Because there was a study that was done much later when they found that, kids who like reading, let's say you like reading, or kids like
Right.
reading, they read books. And then you reward them $1 a book or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
they read more books, but
Right.
they lose the love for reading.
Reading. Mm.
And then subsequently, when you withdraw that reward, they've lost the love for reading.
Right.
So quite a number of interesting motivational theory. But anyway, so here after watching this, I was like, okay, delayed gratification is the thing I need to do for myself, which was easy because we are trained naturally that way. When I tried
Mm-hmm.
doing this with my kids. And then after a while, they actually did this test research again. So I'm going to share the video. So for those who are watching this video for the first time, you will see kids, and it's known as a marshmallow test. So what happens with the kids is they are given one marshmallow and they're not supposed to eat it. If
They're not supposed to. Okay.
Not supposed to. If they waited, they will get the second marshmallow.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is they're given one marshmallow and the instruction is don't eat it. And if you don't eat it, after some time, you'll get a second one. Okay, got
Correct.
it.
So
Okay,
if you
let's
wait long enough, you get more rewards. Okay. So just watch
That's right.
this. It's so cute, and then we'll
Okay,
discuss
okay.
this with evolving leadership. All right.
Okay, sit in that chair. All right, here's the deal. Marshmallow for you. You can either wait, and I'll give you another one if you wait, or you can eat it now. When I come back, I'll give you another one, so then you'll have two. But stay in here and stay in the chair till I come back, okay? All right. I'm gonna go do something and then I'll come back.
It smells yummy. It smells really good.
All right, so it's up to you. You can have it now or you can wait. Okay? I'll be back. Stay in the chair, okay? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna leave and then I'll come back, okay? So you can either eat it right now or you can wait. Either way, okay? Okay. How'd you do? Did you do good? You did?
Yeah.
You wanted to eat it, didn't you? Yeah. So did I tell you to give you another one? Okay, now you can have both. You need them.
Cute
They
fella.
are cute. I know. The fellow who got the two marshmallows, like he's cute from the beginning. So
Yeah.
tell me, so you watching this for the first time?
So yeah. I've seen different variation, but this was nice. Yes.
Okay.
Long
So
time
tell
ago.
me, what do you think was some of your insights? Like, what makes some kids wait?
Okay, so I mean, before I got in there, I was like, I was making some judgment in my head. That's for sure. I said, my God, I saw the negotiator in there. There was I never finished what I just ate a little bit, and she put back. I mean, like she took almost like half of it. Then she put it back to me. That's a negotiator. They're trying like working at the borderline of like, no, I didn't finish it. I didn't finish it.
I know, right? So cute.
Yeah.
I've watched it so many times. I just find them so adorable.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, some of my insights in the sense is like just looking at like, okay, why did the guy get it at the end? Is it? And why did you could see some people who just lost they just succumb to it and say, let's just eat it, they just give up, right? They say, let's just do it. And then you could see some of them trying to look away, trying to, do things, play games, hit the table, they were doing all kind of funny things, right? Trying to distract themselves in a way. Yeah. So the guy who got it also, I noticed he was trying to distract himself in a way. I think.
Nice, so clever.
Yeah, but one of my conclusions was also that it takes discipline.
You fell into my trap there. So, and you would agree with me that when people say when people make decisions, whether it's year-end New Year resolutions, or going on diet, or anything, exercising. Like for me, it would be exercising, right? We often say that to ourselves when we think that of other people, that when we don't do something, when we don't successfully change, we don't make the change, that there's not enough willpower, we're not disciplined.
Right.
That's a very common thing, right? It's a very common thing where we label and judge people and judge ourselves that way. And I'm not proud, but I was also like that. I'm less of that person now. Thank God for this marshmallow. Now, what they did is that, so initially they looked at it as delayed gratification, and how people who practice delayed gratification were more successful.
Sure.
Years later, 30 over years later, they did the marshmallow test again. This is a new one.
Okay.
So this was done again. They reenacted it. Now, then what they found was this. So if you look at the boy, that's the only boy who's like clearly visible who gets the 2 marshmallows.
Right.
Now, what they realize is that the kids who don't eat the marshmallow had a skill. What we thought was willpower was actually a skill. Now, what is that skill? The skill of distracting themselves. So you saw the boy doing that.
Yeah.
So it's skills of distraction that made them not eat the marshmallow and not willpower. Now, why is that important? I mean, you can slice it.
Very important.
Yeah. Why is that important? Because a lot of times when we talk about change as a person, all right, we when we are not able to change, we need to ask ourselves, what is the skill that's going to help me persist? Because if I dismiss it as willpower, it's not going to work.
Right.
So, and I thought, it's very interesting because when we talk about the will skill model, so much of value sometimes is given to willpower that we dismiss the power of skill.
No, absolutely. And because I'm glad that you brought up about 30 years later they did this, reenacted it, and looked at it from a different angle. I think that's important because I think for the longest time there's been a lot of focus on not only the positive mindset and and you can see coming out in the language every time. If someone doesn't do something, the fella is not disciplined, got attitude problem. That's a famous one that we always hear. He's got an attitude problem. He's got an attitude problem. So what we do is, number one, we make value judgments very quickly using the simplest words that we know. Right? And then we just label people in that sense. Attitude problem, he's got no motivation, got no discipline.
No motivation is another one that we often talk about, right? If someone is not willing to do something, we say that to ourselves, we have no motivation. just because
But
we're not ready to move forward. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, no, that this is important because it may be true, but I think let's not discount the fact that is a certain lack of skill holding you back.
Yeah,
I think it's good to investigate that area also.
correct.
Because from a will point of view, right, like what you wrote down, the 7 motivational factors, right? It may be because it's not there, you know. It could be, you know, the autonomy, the purpose, collaboration. Maybe somewhere down there, it's not part of it, is it? Maybe, you know, maybe that's why you're not as motivated. So that at least then you have a clarity. So this is a self-diagnosis tool also, you know.
Yeah,
And then of course, instead of you're right to say when it comes to driving organizational change or personal change, right? I've read so many journals, materials, and more often not, even if you go and Google it right now, right? The first thing that always comes out is, oh, change is hard, you know, it's difficult, you know, people are resistant to change, but they don't understand, right? That what you rightfully put, number one, whatever change you want to focus on, you always put the people in the center, but also then look at these two important drivers. What is their will and what is their skill?
skill level.
And don't discount both. Don't discount both,
Exactly.
you know?
Actually,
And it's
Ashok, as
important.
you said it, sorry, as you said it, are you done?
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry. As you said, when you say we often, in any form of change program, personal development program, people say change is difficult or we don't like change, which is not true. Think about the times when we were little kids and we couldn't wait to grow up because we wanted autonomy and freedom,
Right.
right? I don't know about you, the first gray hair is usually the fun gray hair because it helps us feel like an adult sometimes until the gray gets too much. So there are so many things, or you might have even been excited about your first pimple because all your friends were getting pimples, and that means they were growing up. The first one, not face full of pimples. So
Sure.
there are a lot of changes that we embrace easily, but we don't talk about that. We only
Right.
talk about what we resist and generalize that change is
Sure.
difficult.
Yeah.
Because those changes, you naturally have the skill and will. You know how to shift, and that's the skill. And because you're motivated, there's something in for you that you're either conscious or not conscious about, you just do it,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's very true because I always give this example of, you know, your touch phone, mobile phone,
Mhm.
and your digital mobile phone, right? We did switch, you know,
Exactly.
we did switch, and if you look at the switch, we switched because it is very clear of one thing: what is in it for me. I know how I'll benefit, right? So there was a clarity of that, how I'll benefit. So the will was there. Then the skill kicked in to go and learn. And we took ways and means, whether learning from people, videos, or whatever it is, or trial and error, whatever it is, right? And that's when I guess we moved up the skill ladder, lah. Trying out different things, you know. But you're right to say, you know, it's let's not just discount one area. Both are
Exactly.
important. Both are
Right.
important, and we need to know which levers to pull higher.
Yeah.
What needs to be
And
driven.
and that's interesting, right? There were people who were resisting the smartphones initially, but then moved on because they chose to acquire skills because they need, now they probably they found the will also because there was a reason that they needed that smartphone
Sure.
to be. I mean, it's just like how people have resisted WhatsApp.
Okay.
You know.
That's
Moving
right.
on, we have 10 more
Yeah.
minutes only.
I want to
We
talk about something, you know,
Yeah.
because I have been reading a lot of journals, I've been attending seminars, and there is one conversation that's always coming up in 2023, right? I mean, it's been around for some time, but I think 2023 is taking a bit more shape and form. This whole question about hybrid work,
Exactly.
okay? Because yes, prior to 2020, let's call it traditional workplace, right? And then, of course, you know what happened from 2020 to 2022 is what is a lot more work from home and what have you got. So this year, it's been experiments about hybrid. And again, the conversations I'm hearing, a whole spectrum of conversations, mainly on one side, where they saying it's difficult, right? I'm not hearing enough positive cases in there. But let's look at this model, and then talk about, if you were a leader, how would you approach this? Okay, for me, right? I'm going to put on my change management hat first, huh?
Okay.
For me, so me, whenever I start off with, let's talk about hybrid workplace. To me, this is clear in my mind that this is also part of an employee engagement program, right? Because in the past, if I go back to traditional workplaces, right, employee engagement programs would have taken in the forms of whether it's learning and development programs, your team building, whether it's your rewards and recognition, so on and so forth, performance management and all that. All of that is all part of employee engagement. The physical workplace coming together was never part of it. It was assumed that that's a given. But then what 2020 then threw the curveball was the workplace has changed. Right? So then my question is, if you want to talk about hybrid work, then I guess for me, in my mind, is let's clarify what is a result that we want to achieve first. Right? So to me, that result that we want to achieve is about engaged team members. Then from there, for me, then how I'll break it down is, I'll ask myself, okay, if I want to have engaged team members, what should be the behaviors that I should see more of? What will motivate people, right, to be engaged in this new environment, right? And to me, I will see it as the quality of interaction. Because if you think about it, when we had the physical space, what really kept people engaged, apart from all these other programs, was the quality of interaction people had with each other. So I'll identify that as one vital behavior to look at, right? Of course, again, in my change management hat, when I'm looking at results, I always look for leading indicators and all that, But now I will now look at your model. What are the drivers and what are the social, what are the influencing factors, right? So then my question would be, okay, what is my motivation? So I need to be very clear. If I'm the leader, right? What is my motivation of bringing everyone together? What would be the motivation of the people to come together? So it's just not me, but people, right? So definitely from a strategy point of view, a tactics point of view, I need to have much deeper conversations about what is their motivation for even coming to office or working from home. I need to be able to hold those conversations to identify that, to understand the why, their motivation, right? So this is where the conversations become important. Now, and then it's about the skills, right? Is, okay, if we do say we're going to experiment with a hybrid work, right? Then the question is, what kind of skills do I also need at an individual level, right? You see, for the longest time, we have had in-person meetings. Then suddenly we went to hybrid, right? How do you have these meetings online? That's a skill to be learned, How do you actually watch out for body language, tonalities, How do you get people engaged online? It's all different skills you need to learn. And I don't think we spend enough time in teaching people those skills, because now on one area is a technical skill on learning how to use the functions of this digital, video conferencing tool and all that. But how do we move up the power skill, right? The power side of things is also understanding by looking at body languages, tonalities, creating engagements in different ways, even having one-on-one. If I'm a leader, right? Why can't we even have one-on-one meetings, right? Hybrid way, for example, right? I will also be looking at from a social point of view, right? Again, if I look at will and skill, I'll be asking myself, okay, how do I get everyone to be part of this? I might even, as a leader, I might even look for case studies within the organization or outside of the organization where people are already doing it well to see if I can replicate it, right? If there isn't, then I'll have to gather a group of people who will be champions. That's a social support I'm talking about. People who are saying, yes, let's do it, and let's share skills to be able to do it together, right? Now, from an organizational structure, I probably go a little deeper, right? Looking at, okay, if they're going to be working from home, are they going to be comfortable too? What are the issues there? What is the Wi-Fi considerations for some people, depending on where they stay, right? because we got to assume. Say, for example, my when I used to work in Hong Kong and all that last time, a lot of my colleagues, their homes are much smaller, right? So they rather be in the office in that sense, So there are other factors to look into when I talk about organizational structure, where for some people, maybe the workplace is much better for them. Or for some people, it's because of balancing different things at home. So again, it's a mixture of balance of understanding what's their motivation at their home levels, at their office levels, and trying to find that middle ground in that sense. But I can see already that if I'm going to be using this model, these are the various questions I'm going to be asking, right? I'm not just going to be shutting off everything, because I used to hear during the whole COVID period where people say, it's so tough to do online, cannot. I wish to go back, because it was just a simple brush off, because they didn't want to learn the different skills, you see. But if I'm going to be using this, these are the various questions I probably ask before I get that middle ground. But there's a lot of interaction and conversations that needs to happen. Yes, you're smiling. Go on. Sorry.
No, I wanted to say you got trapped in the willpower trap again, because you said during COVID people didn't want to. I don't think so.
Okay.
Going back to the marshmallow, I think
Yep. That's fair enough.
when we talk about hybrid, right? If you think about during COVID, we were literally forced into it. So the people who embraced the change quickly had a motivation, the will.
Yep.
It could have been any one of this. Like for me, when I think about it, what drove me was growth, right? Growth and for sure my purpose, right? When I needed to learn how to shift training into online training, right? So growth drove me because I had to learn really new skills. And that was difficult. Now, why? Because, I had bills to pay, full stop. I needed to keep my job. Now, socially, if I look at social, when I embrace training as to virtual training, right? Socially, my family was a great support for me. So when I'm in the room, nobody bugs me. So it worked for me. I did all my videos in a room, right? During COVID. Now, of course, in my case, when I look at organizational support, at that moment, it was for most people, businesses started thinking, how do I support my employees who are working from home? So you saw businesses evolving, some gave allowances, some said, maybe you need a better chair. They were already thinking about supporting people. Now, that's how people evolve from not wanting to work from home to working from home, which eventually now, I think slowly people, you saw there was a demand about, I'm working from home, so you better provide me better tables and chairs and environment. So anyway, that's a different story, right? But now the challenge that we are having is that some businesses want people to come back for whatever reason. And people are reluctant to come back. So, and I would say that it's not a matter of whether it's hybrid, whether you're working from home or you're working from the office. I think the objective needs to be clear why we want people to come back to the office, number one. I think, and that is really a separate conversation. Sometimes we're asking people to come back to office because it's just more convenient, right? But if we want people to come back to office either twice a week or every day, depending on your role, then we need to start thinking for that individual, what is going to be the motivation, the willpower? What's going to drive the person to say, I want to come to the office? Maybe collaboration is easier when you come to the office. All right. And if your role success factor is collaboration, then that becomes the reason why the person might come back to the office.
Yep.
Number one.
Absolutely.
Now, socially, we need to also understand why people are reluctant. Maybe they're not having that support at home. In the last 2 years, I don't have a babysitter now. I've been working from home, and I've been at home receiving my children after school. Now I'm reluctant to let go of that because I have no support system at home.
Sure.
Right? And then the organizational support comes in as to how do we now have conversation and meet the diverse needs of people and bring all of that together, right? On one hand. On the other hand, what sort of technical and power skills that people will need, right? Even coming back, you may need different skills, right?
Right.
Because you're so used to multitasking, while being
Correct. Correct.
on a virtual meeting. So we need to now unlearn some of those things where we could do two things and not be caught, or three things and not be caught,
Mm-mm.
to
That's right.
being present in the office and lose the autonomy of multitasking.
Right.
These are things we don't talk about,
Mm.
right? But for me, when I use this model, is I realize that it helps me to think about issues that matter, the nuts and bolts that matter,
That's right.
that we ignore because we think it's insignificant.
Mhm.
But you can have the main structure without the bolts and nuts. It's not going to stand well. And that's what is required when we are thinking about, first, how do we evolve as leaders? When we have empathy, when we are clear, how do we then
Nice.
understand people and engage them in conversation so that we can influence and inspire the change that is required for the business?
Nice.
All right.
Fantastic. Yeah. And this is a very good conversation piece for all our listeners, right? To look at this model, this framework, to be able to hold the right conversations when you want to help influence change, whether it's personal change or for organizational change. Thank you very much for that, Malar. And that brings
Most
us to
well.
the end of the
Yeah,
session
yeah.
and September.
Yes. And can you believe we are starting October and
Yeah.
then November, and then we're going to take a break? Yeah.
So we've
So,
already got our speakers lined up, leaders lined up for exciting month of October, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about collaborative leadership for the month of October. So just plug in for the month of October every Thursdays at 6 p.m. on the Leadership in Flow Asia show. Thank you very much for logging in today.
all right. With that, I hope today's session was useful. Please send us your feedback, either publicly or privately, so that we can keep making the show relevant for you. With that, this is Mother signing off from Malaysia.
And Ashok from Singapore.
Ooh,
Bye-bye.
bye.